Hi, Kilian Muster here, One Man Animation, and I'm back from Universal Studios Japan because I'm on my summer holiday. That's why I got a bit of a sunburn here. The second day was much sunnier than I expected. I didn't bring any sun blocker with me and was running in the sun all day long. I even got a slight heat stroke. But it was fun, it was worth it, it was great. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about what I thought was, and you need past tense, so it was different eventually. What I thought was the ultimate almighty arm rig. And so I was very, very enthusiastic about it. I found this as a tutorial from Pop2gi, who got it from a Chinese animator who goes by the name of Moho Yu San. And I'd like to show you right away, first of all, what that arm rig looks like, how it works, and what I ended up doing with it. Okay, let's go. So this is my mold version of the arm rig. So I actually modified him to use that arm rig. And you can see it's a bit weird because it has like 3 pin bones here. Seems to have no arm bones, which is as a matter of fact, it doesn't have any arm bones. And then these other pins here. So what does every bone do? First of all, I have this one where I can actually move the whole arm. I can rotate the whole arm as one thing. And the pin bones I can use to completely freely move parts of the arm and have this kind of foreshortening going on. And I thought, wow, this is the absolute freedom. This is cool. I can do anything with this. This is the absolute almighty arm rig, I thought. I mean, it seems really cool. You know, it seems like you can just move it any way you want, and you can have all this pseudo foreshortening. I also had this is an older version of my arm. You can see here the angle of the sleeve. So if I do foreshortening, I actually can move this thing a bit up here. I can actually have this thing being more open, or if it's more down there, you know, if it's going straight down the arm, I can close this a bit more, and then it looks a bit more, you know. So you can do foreshortening, and I thought, like, this is the ultimate arm rig. Absolute cool, I thought. However, I made this and I thought it's cool, super great and awesome. And I'll just show you first of all what the issue is with this arm rig, and then I'll show you how to make this, and then I'll just shut up and show you. If you, for example, want to animate this guy, and that's where I found there are the problems, you have a lot of freedom, but if I, for example, want him to wave his arm, just to swing his arm on the side, maybe a walk cycle, you know, I say, okay, if I start here somewhere, maybe move the arm, oops, sorry, that was the hand, have the arm a bit like this, great, and then he would swing it. A second is a bit long, a bit less than a second. So he swings it down here. So that swing movement is great, of course, because it's just a swing movement. But let's say I want him to go a bit more like this, you know, a bit more up here, okay? So we start off with the elbow here, and further up. I'm not going to put the hand let's go do this here, this is a bit annoying. F hand goes over the F arm lower, goes over the head. Boom. Okay, now this is more like it. Okay, so I've got the hand up here. The hand position would be, well, the hand stretched, the arm stretched, and the hand maybe a bit to the back. And now I let him swing the arm, and it's like, wait a second, that's weird. That's not how it swings. That's not how usual people swing. Okay, so I have to have another middle key point here, where the arm gets a bit longer, so it stays angular. So it's like, nah, because right now basically, because these are pin bones and they're not connected to an arm, they just go straight. So they would go straight from this position to this position. So it's unnatural. So you'd have to go in the middle again and say, yeah, I need something that's a bit more stretched out, because this is a circular, it's a pendulum, what is it called? Pendulum kind of motion. Because your anatomy, you know, and that is the problem with this whole rig, because there is no anatomy to support natural movements. Humans have bones, And the only reason why we sometimes want to shorten the arm is because we have 3D motion, which this 2D thing doesn't have. So you kind of fake a 3D motion by shortening, doing the foreshortening. But most motion still is dictated by the anatomy of your body. That means if you have these bones, and whatever you do most of the time are these pendulum kind of motions, because they're all attached to your arm, your hand, your wrist too. It goes this way. It doesn't go straight. Actually, for humans, it's a bit more difficult to make an absolutely straight motion most of the time, because your bones keep you from doing it, because they kind of force it into this pendulum thingy. So if I want my wrist to move absolutely straight downwards, I have to make a conscious effort to keep it straight, and even then I struggle, and then my shoulder has to move and my elbow. So it's not just my arm moving anymore, but if I want to keep it as a straight line, you notice how my shoulder has to help this movement, and my elbow has to go up to work against this pendulum thingy that has a circular motion with it, right? So this rig does away with all of it, which gives you freedom, but it also means that 90% of the time where you want to have a natural movement, doing that takes more effort. So for the few cases where you want to have foreshortening, this is awesome, it's great, and you can do stuff that is like kind of 3D-ish movement, and you can have your arm move like this and stuff, and that's great. But for 80% of the time where you want to have just a normal, natural, anatomic movement, you're screwed, because actually you have to make much more effort, you have to put more interim keyframes in there so that the motion seems more natural. And that's where I first of all thought, like, that's not gonna work, because I rather have something, a good solution that gives me the freedom for the few cases where I want to have foreshortening going on, and most of the other time I want my skeleton, I want my IK chain, I just want to pull the hand and the rest follows. That's much easier than having you go, oh, this one, and then this limb, and then this limb, and have to do 3 corrective motions instead of just pulling the hand and have the whole arm follow it through IK. Another problem with this thing is if I lock the hand, for example, imagine you have him standing at a desk and he puts his, oops, that was wrong. He puts his arm on a desk or on a counter at the bar, right? So I'd say, okay, great, I want to keep his hand on the counter, and he moves with the hand in position, you know, lock hands. Fair enough. I could go and say, okay, this is the bone, and now I'm going to lock this bone, and after that I can animate him, right? Because the bone's locked, right? And he, no, somehow doesn't get locked. Because the pin bone is actually the parent, and forget the right arm, that's not even in the rig right now. But you can see that the left arm here is not really locked. And then you say, okay, well, let's just lock the pin bone. There you go. And then I'm going to animate him, and no, now it's getting even weirder. And you think like, okay, how can I lock this damn arm on the table? Next thing you think like, okay, yeah, okay, this pin bone is parented to this arm rotation bone, so I just unparent it, right? No problem. You can unparent in a sequence. It's nothing that's permanent over the whole sequence. So let's put P and just unparent. Oops. And now you've got this weird rotation going on, and you've got to reset the angle, and great, you're back. But now, okay, fair enough, you know. But you have to do lots of corrective stuff again. For example, you don't get anatomic, I mean, the hand is locked, yeah, but then it's like the only thing that's touching is the lower arm now. So for every move, if he moves forward, I have to gotta fix this again, or like lower the shoulder, or God knows what. So it just doesn't work. It's not really a functioning rig that really gives you anything. It gives you lots of freedom, and in turn for it breaks every other anatomic normal behavior that you would expect from a rig. So I kind of gave up on this. If you still want to know how this is made, it's not so difficult to make it. I'm going to show you all the hidden bones here, and you can see there's quite a bunch of bones in there. And what it basically does, I can give you a new one here. Let's make a basic rig. Get a grid. Ooh. My 410 is better. Let's do a quick one here. I'm going to show you how to build this. Nope. The rectangle. And grid snapping on. So this is the upper arm. new layer, call that lower arm, move it down, and so the upper arm, let's go quick, add a point here, and make this round, boom, 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 there we go. Lower arm, gotta hide this one here, and put a hand to it, maybe, yeah, vector, call it hand. It should be, and the hand is also just going to be like a rectangle, nothing fancy. And the lower arm has also a connector to the, I'm going to switch off the grid for a second because it's going to be a bit narrower. This is like the wrist-ish thing. Put it below. Okay, this is skin color. I got to make these two then different color. Make it white, whatever, doesn't matter. That's the quickest. Okay, so we've got our arm here. Okay, so this is my arm. Fine, great. Then we put all these three in a group. Call this arm. Making bone here. Go to bone. Okay, let's add bones. I'm starting with the shoulder. I'm gonna go back to grid snapping. It helps a bit in this case. Just want to make this quick and dirty. Adding a bone here, and I don't know where the arms are. Can I just see this? Yeah, it's better. Yup. And I'm going to add an arm. Yep. And then one for the hand, right? That's the normal bone structure you get, if you want. And if you look at the parenting, how you get IK and all that stuff. Okay. But our model doesn't work this way at all. It is more like I'll change all the parenting later. Just show you how we build the structure. So I'll make this a bit shorter. Ooh, jumping around. Makes this a bit shorter here. Making this a bit shorter here too. Adding a bunch of new bones here from the wrist up here, and from the elbow up here. And I'm going to reparent all of this stuff in a second. You can see this well enough. I hope I remember how all this stuff was parented. And a bunch of pin bones we need too. One for the shoulder, one for the elbow, one for the wrist. And if you want to, you could have one for the hand too. And now we got to parent all this stuff properly. So that's the shoulder. Poptugi's model parented everything to the same shoulder. I did it a bit differently, so I got a little bit of anatomical motion here, but basically this one parents to this one, this baby parents to this one too parents to the same shoulder here, this one parents to the pin shoulder, this one parents to the elbow. I hope that's still right, I haven't done this for a few days. This also parents to the elbow, the wrist parents back to the elbow, I think. You've got to try this. I'm not 100% sure whether I still have this properly. And of course, not to forget, all these bones should have 0 strength for now. Except for the hand, which needs, well, because I don't want to do all this point binding for the hand. I'm just a bit lazy in that regard. So it just gives the hand a bit of a strength. So I can just simply, let's just bind everything to everything. So with the hand, I'm just going to basically bind the whole hand, flexi bind it to this bone here. Just go to Command Shift F, flexi bind, boom. That's fine. That'll do the trick. The lower arm, I have to point bind now. Now I have to look at this stuff here. So first of all, I'm going to point bind these points here to this bone, right? Hit return. Then I'm going to point bind the elbow upper end to this elbow upper end bone. See the blue, same color, right? Now I go to the upper arm. Hope you can see this well enough. I'm just going to remove the old arm. I point first select the bone. This bone will have these points bound to it, and this bone will have the upper bones bound to it. Okay, so the idea is that these bones here kind of keep all the points straight and make sure that they just don't look into, that they always point facing in the right direction when you move the pin bones, Jesus Christ. Now, the trick is, this baby, I first have to rename the bones. I call this shoulder pin, elbow, oops, typing elbow pin, and pin, and we, whoop, what am I doing? My mouse cursor went crazy. And this is the called finger pin, and I'm just going to tell all the bones what they're supposed to, where they're supposed to look, because right now if I move this, it's just a big mess. So this one has to use as the target the shoulder pin. This one up here should point at the elbow pin. This one needs to point at the hand pin. I should have called wrist pin, but never mind. And this one also always should point at the elbow. You get the gist, right? This baby should always point at the fingers. I think that should do the trick, most of it. Let me quickly also color the pin bones so I can see them a bit better. Let's just go with coral. Yep, it's orange here. And now if I try this out on frame 1, the hand moves fine, moves the hand along with it. The wrist is kind of screwed up, so that's not working. It's always good if you make mistakes, you know. There's always stuff to do. Did I again target hand pin? Why are you not hand pin? Odd. Parent. It's got to be this one then. Hand. Yep, that was probably the problem. The parenting is messy. So the wrist of course needs to be bound to, let's just grid snapping, don't need this. The wrist needs to be bound to the other. So you can see how this stuff, it always orients the right way, and this one controls the hand and the elbow. Oh, there's still, yeah, again, parenting issue. This baby needs to be bound to the elbow, of course, so it moves with the elbow. Is this right now? What the hell is this thing going? Yeah, that's. Can we just try again? No, what the hell? This one too, to the elbow, I guess. God, I've just forgotten how to do this. There we go. Okay, now we've got the and this one does the wrist. So you can see you can move this freely any way you want, and it's still a bit weird with the hand, I guess. That's the problem, really. But I mean, you've got a lot of freedom here. But again, if you move the shoulder, it's just all a bit weird. It's just doesn't really move very organically, and even if you try different parenting models and whatnot, it's not the greatest. Let us, for example, lose the pin bone for the hand, so the hand will just move freely. Doesn't make much difference. It's a bit better, maybe, you know. So yeah, it feels a bit more like you're under control. But then we was basically saying, yeah, let's give up the pin bones and go back to these normal bones. If I move the shoulder moves with it. It's fine. Whoops. I want to rotate this. I could add another bone here for rotation, or you can just change the rotation angle of the pin bone. So this is the supposedly almighty hand model, which doesn't give you much anatomical movement, which is the problem that I've been facing. So this is kind of crap. I discarded this, and what I then did was basically go back to my old way of doing stuff with the normal bones. Let me just show you all the shy bones. It's a little bit different. So what I figured out then is like, okay, I want IK. So I need at least one normal IK chain to give me that movement where I can just pull the hand and the rest comes with it. But I also want to do foreshortening, but without distorting, you know, the vectors that are bound to those bones. So what I've ended up doing is, if you look at this arm, it's kind of a mix of that almighty bone thing and normal bone structure. So I have the normal bone structure, which is normally parented. You can see the upper arm is parented to the shoulder bone, and the lower arm is parented to the upper arm bone, and so on. Just that's the normal IK chain. That's one thing, okay? And then I add these bones here. It's so hard to see them. Which are parented to the bone they are growing out of. So it's like this one goes to the shoulder bone. And I also tell those bones to ignore inverse kinematics, because if you don't do that, if you add these bones here, and you don't say ignore inverse kinematics, then you pull the hand, it doesn't move because it's stopped by all these other bones being part of the inverse kinematic chain. So you want these bones to be here to control all the points in the arm, so they'll stay straight and always oriented in the right direction, but you still want to have the main bones for the anatomical structure to be in the IK chain, so you can just pull. So as you can see here, if I go here and I just pull the arm now, I can just, it just follows the IK chain. Just normal IK, as you're used to. Yeah, but with the advantage that now, what I do with this bone, you got to check the settings there as well. I just switched off squash and stretch scaling. So when I scale this baby, oh come on, there you go too. When I scale this baby here, it just you know, it scales linearly. There's no distortion whatsoever. And to make sure that this is always fine, I tie, find the arm here, arm lower. As you can see, you look at this. So these, you can see, so that these 4 points are bound to this small inner bone here, just to make sure that they're not going to screw up stuff. These bones here are tied to the inner bone here. This one, you can see the red ones, red points, red bone, and they're tied to that. And now what I can do is, it has another big advantage, of course, with this bone. I can always where am I? Mowld. I can always reset the scale. So even if I do foreshortening up the yin-yang with this bone structure and go crazy and do things, I always know what the original length was. It's another thing that I found problematic with the supposedly almighty bone structure, that you keep on deforming the arms so much that you forget what was the original length of the upper arm and of the lower arm. It's not always anatomical, it's not always equal. Some characters have like him, very short legs and stuff. And you want to be able to go back and just say, boom, reset, you know, boom, reset. And I hide those bones. So normally if I hide all the shy bones, I only have these bones left here for the IK chain. So now I can actually move him anatomically. Normally I can lock my bones. I can say, oh, he's here standing at the bar counter, or has his hand here on the table, and say like that. And you go and say lock bone, and I can just normally, the bone is locked, and when I move his upper body, it mostly moves, you know, naturally, as it would when you have your arm rested on a place like this. So it saves me a lot of time, because I can just pop in a few keyframes, and the rest, the in-betweening can be done by the software again. And if I really need to foreshorten it, if I say, oh, he's gonna be here, and has his arm really, you know, or you want a different angle or something. There are ways of doing this, you know. There we go. You know, so you can do your foreshortening as you see fit, as you need it, and there we go. And you still have your, well, there's a bit of a mess going on here. I still haven't fixed all the pieces of this rig yet, but you get the gist. It just feels like this actually solves the problem for me. It gives me the foreshortening, but it keeps the IK chain to have natural movement, and it's kind of the best of both worlds for me. Eventually I'm happier with this, because I use locking bones a lot. If as soon as your characters have to hold on to something on a steering wheel, or you know, in the spaceship, or as I said, hands on the bar, or even hands on the lap and they're talking, you know, you want those hands in place. You don't want them to move with the upper body. In most cases, when humans do something active with their hands, they hold a glass, and you move your body, you're not moving like this. You know, you very often try to keep the glass in place, and so your hands stay in place. And but the rest of your arm has to move anatomically with it, and with the other pin bone based rig, that's not going to happen. You just have your lower arm suddenly stretching in a weird way, and then you have to start fixing everything. And I just don't like having to fix stuff that a broken rig breaks. Rather have a rig that works and fix only stuff that isn't provided by the working rig. So this is my final word. Maybe boring, maybe not as almighty and amazing as you expected, but I find this to be working well. One more thing to show you is, maybe you've wondered about the sleeve, what's going on there, you know, where I have this widget here. Oops, gotta go to frame 1 of course for this. That allows me to move the sleeve like this, so I can have with a foreshortening to sell the foreshortening, because it doesn't really get narrow. It should actually be perspectively getting wider or narrower, which it doesn't. But with the sleeve opening and closing, you can still sell this foreshortening as a perspective, although it's not perspective. And this is a very simple widget. If you look at the bones, there's actually 3 bones here. Yeah, now you can see this, and I'm just going to show you the sleeve lower. So this sleeve here, we go here, has these parts here. So it's a very wide curve, so if it opens in a very circular way. And there's the lower part, this shape here, for the inside of the sleeve, okay? And the default position here is basically almost straight, yeah? Now the way I've bound this is there is this this thing here that binds only the upper point to it. Only the upper point here in the middle is bound to the upper bone, okay? The second bone is controlling only the corners of the sleeve, those 2 corners, as you can see. Blue one, blue one, blue one, only the corners of the sleeve. And the third bone here is controlling only the sleeve, the lower part of the sleeve, okay? Now, the setup is very, very simple. This is the actual bone that I'm moving, and the other bones are controlled by the first bone in a very simple way. So, this bone's name is F sleeve upper, okay? Remember this. Second bone, if I look at this, I can see there's a position control bone. And the position control bone for the second bone is this F sleeve upper bone, but only for the vertical position. Yeah, yeah. Right, am I? No, for the horizontal position. See, it's getting complicated. Because this X and Y is always, it's not XY, it's YX. Go figure. So only the horizontal position will move the same way as the position control bone. And the vertical position will stay in place. What happens here is basically that the corners of the sleeve, if I move the upper bone, they will follow horizontally. They will follow horizontally with the bone, but vertically stay in place. So if I move the upper bone up, I'm basically only lifting the upper edge of the sleeve, but the corners stay in place. So you get this opening motion, right? And of course, as you can guess now, what the third bone does is it only controls 1 point, don't forget. It is controlled, so it follows the upper one horizontally. So when the corners move, they all move in place, left, right, they all move with each other. But vertically, it goes in the opposite direction. And actually, I made it a bit less than the same movement. So it's 70% of the movement only. It takes over minus in the opposite direction. So as you can see, if I move this now, I'm going to show you what is actually happening here. Oops, can I do this? Hello. Well, I'm not in the bones here, so what's this here? Okay, if I move this left, right, you can see everything moves with it left, right. If I go up, as you can see, the corners stay in place vertically, and the lower one goes down, and the upper one, of course, follows the main bone. So that's all there is to it. And now I can actually basically change the opening angle here. I can make it go down if the arm is up, and if it moves downwards or has this way around, you want by gravity, you always want the opening to be at the bottom, so you can adjust that too, so it looks more natural. Super simple, super effective, pretty happy with this. And again, as I said, if you hide all the bones that are automatically controlled anyway, it's actually pretty easy to use. This is only one bone, so you can just do whatever you want with this. That's all it is. So as I said, if it's this way around, you have it this way. If his arm is the other way around, you would go this way. Gravity is a thing. And then you can foreshorten and open it a bit more so it looks more foreshortened, although there is no real perspective going on here. And you can sell this basically. So that's my little arm rig that I use for Mowld. Yes, episode 3 is coming. I'm working on it. It's just I have limited time, but it is coming. It will be coming this year for sure. Maybe within the next 1 or 2 months. I can't promise. If you want to know when it's out, follow me on Twitter, or you can look up my Sneaky Peek production blog, where I usually have these progress bars showing how far things are coming along, so you can see, okay, we're just very close to release or whatever. Or if you're lazy, you can check every now and then on pixelblast.net, which is kind of the official Phungus Mowld site, but isn't updated that often. So again, if you want to stay up to date, Twitter is probably the best way to follow what's going on and when stuff will be out. Bye, and see you soon on the next vlog episode.
Dismissed, peasant!